Hello everybody, I'm in the Littlewood, also known as Martin. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be diving back into Hytale. It has been roughly 12 months actually since my last video on the game, but basically there was a little bit of a dry spell, I think partly because of the Riot acquisition, which congrats to the team on that by the way, and basically I got really busy with Fortnite and I didn't feel like covering the blog posts, but we're back at it and I want to ramp up for the hype that is going to be next year's release. So from here on out, it's my intention to put all Hytale content on this channel and maybe even make it exclusive Hytale once the game releases, so strap yourselves in and let's take a look at April 2020. So it was a relatively quiet first half of the month, but on the 12th we did get this adorable little image regarding Easter, a little happy Easter from the team. Now there's nothing particularly new or groundbreaking in this other than like I guess confirmation of different apple colours. We've seen all of these mobs before, even the goblin on the rooftop, but what was really interesting about this one is compared to last year where we already did have the little wicker baskets, this time around we actually have brand new specially designed Easter eggs, and that got me wondering, would Hytale ever consider doing seasonal content in adventure mode? Now obviously this is a little bit of a stretch because games like this typically come as the final done product. New content's usually reserved for expansion packs which would require a new save, or they just go ahead and add an entirely different realm where all of this new content is there to explore. But given that there's 4 consistent holidays that the Hypixel team for the past 2 years now have actually been posting about, it would be really cool if Orbis was moving in parallel to our own world. So the holidays in question are Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and Easter. I would love to see how the Quebecs do Christmas and how they decorate their little woodland homes, if they celebrate it at all. Can you imagine the Ferens trying to do Easter, the eggs just melting in the desert? And question, how would the Trorc show affection on Valentine's Day? The only reason that I'm toying with this idea is simply because these social media posts aren't just scenes made up of pre-existing assets, they're specifically creating these festive items. They've got original outfits, decorations, they've got objects like wrapped presents, Easter eggs, candy canes, jack-o'-lanterns, all sorts of stuff. All that said though, it really wouldn't surprise me if Hypixel were just going above and beyond for each social media post to add that little creative detail. Who knows? Right, let's get on to the blog post from Thursday then. And we joined the player in Zone 3, currently known as Borea. And we got some pretty heavy snow downfall here, which admittedly, I don't like the look of personally. But as always, with any of these blog posts, everything is a work in progress and it could be completely changed, removed, or whatever by launch. Immediately, we have further confirmation of something that was revealed earlier this month in a separate post, and that is the fact that dual wielding will in fact be in the game. I know we had confirmation of this kind of, but not really, all the way back in December, but that was a typical sword and shield layout. I didn't know if that would actually translate to other items like torches and blocks and consumables. So speaking of this brand new offhand, you can now see at the far left of the hotbar there is a brand new slot. This is your offhand, it's on the Z key currently, and it has got a beefy cobalt shield in its place. There's a sword in the main hand, which is obviously dictated by the 1 to 9 hotbar, typical of this kind of game. And just a really quick side note on this by the way, even though the shield is on the left side and the sword is on the right, I really hope that it is left click for the sword and right click for the shield. My brain I don't think could comprehend the swap. Anyway, back to our brand new hotbar, because on the far right hand side there is another brand new slot, and this is for consumables, that ranging from potions to food, and in the future maybe more. There's also no point speculating about what that orange liquid in the bottle could be for right now, because we all know it's Lucozade. Don't correct me on that. Moving on with the video, our character takes a few steps forwards and enters the mouth of the cave, and it's a really subtle detail, but you can actually see in the third person view when it moves to it that it's not a hard cut. The camera actually retracts outwards from the head to behind the player. And speaking of different camera perspectives, I still don't know if we've had any confirmation of a selfie view inside of this game. So typically say in Minecraft you press F5 once, you look at the third person view behind you, and then you press it again and you've got the selfie view, same sort of distance but from front on of your character. I'm hoping that Hytale has that, and I'd be very surprised if it didn't. Just a couple more steps forwards and then our character presses the Z key, which is obviously for their offhand item, and that brings up the brand new radial menu. Radial menu, if you don't know, is basically a circular menu. You move your mouse to whichever option you'd like to select, you give it a left click, and away you go. It changes the item or enacts whatever command it has there. As it stands right now, this menu seems to have 5 options. 4 of them you can utilize for whatever the hell you want, and then the 5th one in the bottom center with the big X basically means empty your hand. And then the only question I really have about the offhand currently is there any limitations to what you can put in it? Can you imagine just how efficient builders could be if they could have regular wall blocks in their left hand and then they could have their roofing pieces in the other hand? They're going to be so fast. But I'm pretty sure the strictest rules are going to come around the weaponry. Like I can't imagine that the spellbook that we saw in the December update is going to be allowed to be dual wielded with the sword, for example, in the other hand, because obviously that hand needs to be free to even throw the spells. But how cool would it be if we could use the spellbook to make the sword catch fire? Ugh. Anyway, back to the video clip, and you can see as we enter the cave and things start to get a little bit darker, that the light from the torch does emit when you're holding it. Awesome. And then it's followed up by a very quick blink and you might miss it detail. When the torch is first placed and it's close enough, you can see a text prompt that pops up that says press F to turn on, which obviously is a slight typo because it should really read off rather than on. So my guess is that this is brand new in the dev build, and this could be a feature that might not make the final game, but I would love it if it stayed. If it does though, Hypixel Studios, please be forgiving gods and allow us to basically just turn torches off and on at will and not require some kind of oil or some kind of igniter. Just going off on a tangent super quickly as well, and if this doesn't happen to work with the default torches in the game, I would love it if somebody could program torches that during the daytime are not lit, and then as the evening then descends and the light level in the world lowers, the torches then ignite and start to work through the night time. So if say you were doing a time lapse from a distance, it could look really legit. And in addition to that, you could even program some of the mobs in the little settlements and camps to actually have one of their job roles be when the light dims to a certain level in the world, that they walk over, ignite the torch, and then return to their post. Again, it just would feel really authentic and real and living. Anyways, our character continues on through this cave and he decides to do a little bit of parkour. He jumps, he lands on a snow block, and we see a really cool reactive animation. Once again, everything's work in progress because obviously in this clip you can see that the cracked floor animation does extend beyond the single block that we've landed on, but other than that, the splash up looks great. And that's all for clip number 1. Let's move on to the second one, and this is combat with a lone Trork. So the first thing our player does after aggroing the mob is they whip out their iron shield, put it in the offhand, and then block the first strike of incoming damage. But not entirely. Even though the shield's up, you hear the clang, you see the thud, 25% of the player's health is still taken off. And then in the second swing from the Trork, the shield gets up just a little bit too late, and the raw blow to the body did 50% of its health. So it's terrifying, but also equally cool to know that this game might lean a little bit heavier on recovery items and movement, rather than just standing there and putting up a shield to completely nullify all damage. It means you'll fight smarter, things will feel a bit more intense, and there's more fluidity when it comes to the combat. Another cool detail that I like from this is that you can see there's a very small radial glow in the center of the screen, which gives us information about the direction that damage is coming from when we get hit. That information isn't particularly useful when it comes to physical damage, but it's going to be great when it comes to projectiles or any flying mobs, because that way you can keep a better track of the direction that you're being hit from with either arrows, spells, spit, like whatever it ends up being. Now, not everybody will have noticed this, but the first sword swing didn't actually cause the Trork to react. I thought initially like, oh, well, maybe there's a chance that you can do no damage when you hit an enemy. But luckily, on Twitter, Noxia replied to Atlantic Craft saying that it's a known issue, and they did consider reshooting this video for this specific scene, but they decided that this kind of really reaffirms the idea of work in progress when stuff like this gets through. Going back to the clip now then, and the second swing of the sword drops the mighty Trork to the ground, and in the bottom right corner of the screen we can see that 2 ingredients were automatically looted. They were soft hides. And this got me wondering, will all items in this game auto loot, or will it only be ingredients? There's always been something quite satisfying about landing that final blow and then seeing the loot spill out of the enemy and all over the floor to start picking from. So I went back to the last monster slaying clip that I could think of, which was the December progress post, and in that video the player was rewarded a pile of bones for each kill that they achieved, which is labelled as a block, which is quite interesting. So I'm assuming that that is something that you can place down in the world as a physical decoration. So right now we have the confirmation of ingredients and blocks, but what about weaponry and ores? Ores is still a complete undetermined, but we do know what happens with weapons. So in that old video from December, when the first spellcaster skeleton was slain, the purple spellbook actually went straight into the hotbar rather than the inventory. And I love the idea of this. It's kind of like an action scene where you almost like, say, punch one guy in the chest, he drops his baton in the air, you catch it and then throw it at another guy. You know what I mean? It kind of has like that motion and choreography feel to it. But we do have a problem. Examining this clip again a couple months on, and it seems to be that the player that gets the final strike on the monster before it falls is the one that gets the loot, or at least that seems to be the case. Because if you really slow it down, you can see that just a few milliseconds before our final spells hit that spellcaster, as well as the other skeleton, the other human player, Ninja, seems to hit them with a final blow of their sword just before we get there, and in both of those occasions, in the bottom right corner, there is 0 loot for us. Again, this is very likely just a work in progress, the mob might not have even had any loot on them, and I'm just really hoping that there's no kind of golden goal, final strike gets the reward kind of system, because I think people will just fall out with one another arguing over the spoils. Anyways, back to our Trort clip, and the player decides to go ahead and recover some HP with the use of food, which is a very interesting detail to learn. And by the way, why does food always look so good in anime and games? It's not fair. Our character decides to pass on the salad and the grilled fish, instead opting for a good old bit of meat kebab. And then what happens next is strange, because there's a bit of a delay, and then the animation kicks in, but the bar as the health is recovering is a bit weird. I don't know how to explain it. It looks almost like unconfident. Is that a weird way to describe it? I'm not sure if they're trying to mimic the chewing motion with the bar going back up. That's the only rhythmic thing I can think of to compare it to. Once that character's finished chowing down and you hear the gulp and you assume everything is over, the health bar is still crawling upwards. This would imply that there is some kind of buff applied to the character, maybe only from certain types of food, that continues to heal you for a short period after. All that said though, there aren't actually any new icons or sound effects or anything that appears to imply that a buff has been applied. I guess for now, we'll leave it be. And then I guess just for information's sake, if you didn't pause the video, the final piece of food that they took into is called cooked wild meat. So there you go. Now, obviously, hacking and slashing isn't going out of fashion anytime soon, but one other thing that people enjoy doing is building. And this time around, we have got some brand new roof blocks, which people will be excited about. And I love the fact that Hypixel Studios are fully aware of the audience that they've garnered and are going to inherit when the game drops. They're giving people the tools and the versatility to properly create anything that they want to build that their mind can come up with. It's so important to them. So this time around, we're introduced to a lot of tall and steep pieces, which are going to be really good for giving that sense of scale and height and kind of that daunting feeling when you look up on certain buildings. And they've also got some really nice connector blocks. They've got ones that are going to be great for right angle corners or wrapping around a bend. They've even got one that pretty much looks like an entire bowl shape, so you can do those nice little U-shaped corners. And then you can see at the bottom of the screenshot as well that we've got two variations on a very shallow leaning piece, which means that not everything has to be pointing upwards and vertical. You can get some more horizontal planes in there as well. This is all followed up by a video from Propsy, who is throwing together a quaint suburban home, which after playing through the Floo Network's Minecraft Harry Potter map recently, I am getting some serious flashbacks to Privet Drive. During the course of this video as well, we do see an interesting mechanic, which is actually some kind of telegraphing system or hologram that actually shows you what the object will look like in the place you intend to put it from that angle. With how specific some of these new pieces are, this is going to be a really handy tool to gauge certain spaces before plonking anything down. Now, I did see some people complaining on Twitter about this and saying that the hologram will be really distracting and annoying. My hope is that from this little clip we see here, where the first two pieces have a holograph and the latter two don't, I'm hoping that there's going to be just a keybind that we can press and hold to make the hologram appear. That would be cool. And then there we go. That just about does it. Oh, no, wait, no, it doesn't. Before we leave, we've got a brand new soundtrack song. It's called A World Below. It's been playing in the background actually for the last few seconds if you didn't notice. And this song belongs to the shadowed underbelly of Zone 4's devastated lands in the area known at the moment as the Tropical Jungle. The video that comes along with this gives us our first glimpse as well of a brand new mob known as the Raptor. This isn't to be confused with the Cave Rex, which also featured in the same concept art way back when. I'm pretty sure the Cave Rexes are going to be humongous. And I'm really digging the ambient glow that's coming from the bulb hanging off of its forehead. I really hope that they're not smart and can turn it on and off. I hope it's on all the time so we can help detect them and stay away from them when we're down there. Alright, now we're actually done. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. In the comment section below, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think is the most important or interesting piece of information from Hytale in the past 30 days? Is there anything that I missed on Twitter and other places? If so, then let me know. And as I mentioned a moment ago, if you haven't checked it out already, if you're a Hytale or Minecraft enthusiast, the Floo Network's Harry Potter map is real good fun. The detail, the complexity, the coding, the sheer talent that went into it, I think deserves a lot more love. So if you want to see that, there's a link in the description to my full playthrough of it, and in the description of those videos you can download the map for yourselves. Have a blast. But anyway, have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay safe in quarantine, wash those hands, you dirty buggers, and I'll see you all in the next blog post. Ta-ra!